يا أبا عبد الله إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم إلى يوم القيامة. ولعن الله آل زياد وآل مروان، ولعن الله بني أمية قاتبا، ولعن الله ابن مرجانا، ولعن الله عمر بن سعد، ولعن الله شمرا، ولعن الله أمة أسرجت وألجمت وتنكبت لقتالك. بأبي أنت وأمي لقد عظم مصابي بك، فأسأل الله الذي يكرم مقامك وأكرمني أن يرزقني طلب صارك مع إمام منصور من أهل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم اجعلني عندك وجيها بالحسين عليه السلام في الدنيا والآخرة. يا أبا عبد الله، يا أبا عبد الله، يا أبا عبد الله، إني أتقرب إلى الله وإلى رسوله وإلى أمير المؤمنين وإلى فاطمة وإلى الحسن وإليك بموالاتك وبالبراءة ممن أسس أساس ذلك وابنى عليه بنيانه وجرى في ظلمه وجوره عليكم وعلى أشيائكم. برئت إلى الله وإليكم منهم، وأتقرب إلى الله ثم عليكم بموالاتكم ومولاة وليكم وبالبراءة من أعدائكم والناصبين لكم الحرب وبالبراءة من أشيائهم وأتباعهم. إني سلم لمن سالمكم وحرب لمن حاربكم وولي لمن والاكم وعدو لمن عاداكم. فأسأل الله الذي يكرمني بمعرفتكم ومعرفة أوليائكم ورزقني البراءة من أعدائكم أن يجعلني معكم في الدنيا والآخرة، وأن يثبت لي عندكم كدم صدق في الدنيا والآخرة، وأسأله أن يبلغني المقام المحمود لكم عند الله، وأن يرزقني طلب صاري مع إمام هدى ظاهر ناطق بالحق منكم. وأسأل الله بحقكم وبشأن الذي لكم عنده أن يعطيني بمصابي بكم أفضل ما يعطي مصاب بمصيبته، مصيبة ما أعظمها وأعظم رزيتها في الإسلام وفي جميع أهل السماوات والأرض. اللهم اجعلني في مقامي هذا ممن تناله منك صلوات ورحمة ومغفرة. اللهم اجعل محياي محيا محمد وآل محمد ومماتي ممات محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إن هذا يوم تبركت به بنو أمية وابن عاكلة غباد اللعين ابن اللعين على لسانك ولسان نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله في كل موطن وموقف، وكفى فيه نبيك صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم لعن أبا سفيان ومعاوية ويزيد بن معاوية عليهم منك اللعنة عبد العابدين. هذا يوم فرحت به آل زياد وآل مروان بقتلهم الحسين صلوات الله عليه. اللهم فضاعف عليهم اللعن منك والعذاب الأليم. اللهم إني أتقرب إليك في هذا اليوم وفي موقف هذا وأيام حياتي بالبراءة منهم واللعنة عليهم وبالموالاة لنبيك وآل نبيك عليه وعليهم السلام. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن الإصابة التي جاهدت الحسين عليه السلام وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر لحد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم خس أنت أول ظالم باللعن مني وابدع به أولا ثم الثاني والثالث والرابع. اللهم لعن يزيد خامسا ولعن عبيد الله بن زياد وابن مرجان وعمر بن سعد وشمرا وعلى أبي سفيان وعلى زياد وعلى مروان إلى يوم القيامة. اللهم لك الحمد حمد الشاكرين لك على مصابهم. الحمد لله على عظيم رزيتي. اللهم ارزقني شفاعة الحسين عليه السلام يوم الورود وثبت لي كدم صدق عندك مع الحسين وأصحاب الحسين الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات والشهداء والعلماء رحم الله من يقرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
استقبال السيد محمد تبكي بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين والنازعات غرقا والناشطات نشطا والسابحات سبحا فالسابقات سبقا فالمدبرات أمرا والسابحات سبحا فالسابقات سبقا فالمدبرات أمرا يوم ترجف الراجفة تتبعها الرادفة قلوب يومئذ أبصارها خاشعة أبصارها خاشعة يقولون أئنا لمردودون في الحافرة أإذا كنا عظاما نخرة قالوا تلك إذا كرة خاسرة فإنما هي زجرة واحدة فإذا هم فإذا هم بالساهرة هل أتاك حديث موسى إذ ناداه ربه بالواد المقدس طوى اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى فقل هل لك إلى أن تزكى وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى فأراه الآية الكبرى فكذب وعصى ثم أدبر يسعى فحشر فنادى فقال أنا ربكم الأعلى فأخذه الله مكان الآخرة والأولى فكذب وعصى ثم أدبر يسعى فحشر فنادى فقال أنا ربكم الأعلى فأخذه الله مكان الآخرة والأولى إن في ذلك لعبرة لمن يخشى بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس مالك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس قل يا أيها الكافرون وليدين أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين فويل للمصلين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون الذين هم يراءون ويمنعون المعون صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
And tonight, inshallah, we'll be commemorating the martyrdom of Qasim ibn Hassan. And there will be Brahmdi of the Tabut, inshallah, which will follow the same pattern again. And the men's will come in for one entrance, who will come to the stage whilst the Qur'an is reciting, and then we'll go out the other door. Please do maintain social distancing and do your salam from afar. Salu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Tomorrow, inshallah, at 11:30 after Majlis, here at Hussaini Mission, we will be doing a Shabbidari, in which there will be a small Majlis consisting of Masa'ib of Sayyid al-Ruqayya, inshallah, in which, inshallah, we will again be joined by Sheikh Ibrahim al-Ansari. But tonight we are commemorating Qasim ibn Hassan. Qasim's request: O youth, hear me. O youth, hear me my tragedy when you mourn and remember. Hear my story, hear my glory, and help me live forever. On that day my uncle taught me, live like Ali and die like Hussain. O youth, when you recall me and for me weep, the lessons of my story in your tears keep. I saw my uncle alone and wouldn't sleep. I tell you the tears he shed saw me. Feeling guilty, Ramla saw me. Take Hassan's armor and shield, she cried for me. None could told my mother, please let me. I told my mother, please let me leave this tent and my death attain. On that day my uncle taught me, live like Ali and die like Hussain. O youth, know by two names I was left in awe. I'm young, but I can't explain the things I saw. For years, a man named Ali tears would pour. The pride of his name, every man near me wore. I saw a pride that's never died. We were the sons of Ali. In awe of us, they all loved us. And this every day I'd see. A promise that lived inside me, a pride my actions would maintain. On that day my uncle taught me, live like Ali and die like Hussain. I was young when he killed my father Hassan. Every eye would look at me as an orphan, all alone, and came to wipe my head, a man. Now he's all alone, to help him I can. When I was young, when I was young, to me he'd come and he'd become my father. What has become? What has become? He has no one, he's calling for a helper. What kind of son would Qasim be if alone he would remain? On that day, my uncle taught me, live like Ali and die like Hussain. I lived my life in my grandfather's shadow. I lived my life in my grandfather's shadow. From my morals, my love for Ali they'd know. And on that day, his word to the world I'd show. Yesterday's gone and tomorrow's uncertain. Yesterday has gone and uncertain is tomorrow. Work within this world, he would say, as if you live forever. And as if you'll die tomorrow, work towards the hereafter. Today is my day, I'll work for me, to be known as Qasim the slain. Live like Ali and die like Hussein. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, sallallahu alayka ya ibn Rasulillah. And with these words, I now call upon our esteemed lecturer for the next few nights and tonight, inshallah, Shaykh Ibrahim al-Ansari with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
A second salawat for the love of Imam al-Hassan and Hussaini.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
And the third and final salawat for the love of Fatima al-Zahra with the loudest of your voices.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك وعلى آل بيتك الطاهرين. ما خاب والله من تمسك بكم وأمنا يا من لجأ إلى حصنكم سادتي. سيدي يا أبا عبد الله يا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة ويا باب نجاة الأمة. غريب يا مظلوم كربلاء. بأبي وأمي من ذبح من القفاء. بأبي وأمي من ذبح عطشانا. يا ابن الشبيب إن يوم الحسين أطرح جفوننا أسبل دموعا هذا العزيز. أبا عبد الله يا ليتنا يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Enlighten your majalis and bless this gathering with a loud salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
When it comes to the topic of death, many people start getting scared. Many people try to run away from such a subject. Many people try to avoid it and try to do whatever they can to avoid the topic of death. Anything. Just don't discuss the topic of death with me. Leave me. Discuss whatever you want to discuss. When it comes to death, leave me alone. I don't want to be a part of this discussion. And there tends to be that fear towards death due to many different reasons, which we will examine in a second. But the question today is death really something to be scared of? Or is death something good? Or what actually is death? And today, actually, I have titled what I want to talk about today is a positive look at death. But in order to understand death and then understand its positivity, we first need to understand a few things of them. First, we need to understand why we are scared of death to begin with, and then what death truly is, for us to then be able to come to a conclusion whether death is the scary thing or if it's this positive thing, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
A second salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
There are three main reasons that we can talk about when it comes to the topic of death and why someone is scared of death. Now, these reasons are not the only reasons, but I think that these reasons conclude all the other reasons, and from them we can stem other reasons. The first reason is disbelief in a day such as the Day of Judgment, disbelief in a life which is the afterlife, whether that is the barzakh or whether that is eternity after. Either not believing in it to begin with, and in that case, it is very obvious why someone would be scared, because it is within human nature that you are scared of whatever is absent. Human nature. What is absent, we are scared from it. Light, we love light. Darkness, the absence of light, keep me away from that. And people don't like such a thing as darkness because it's the absence of light. And this absence is the exact thing that makes people scared. And you find, for example, even with evil, what is evil? It is the absence of good, correct? Good is good. Evil is the absence. Avoid evil because it's an absence of good. Likewise with death. If we think of death to be an absence of life, we become scared of it because it is within human nature to become scared of something that is an absence. So that is one, we either do not believe in it to begin with, or no, we believe in an afterlife, but that belief, we're a bit unsure about it. There is no certainty about an afterlife, such as an agnostic. An agnostic, they believe in God, but at the same time, they're not sure. Such a person could be scared of death. Why? because they're not sure of what is about to happen after they die. That is the first reason. The second reason, by the way, when I say the first reason, the second reason, and the third reason, these reasons do not necessarily have to mean that they all come together and they all apply to a specific person. No, not at all. These two of them could apply, all of them could apply, none of them could apply, or one of them could apply. It really depends. The second reason is attachment to the dunya. Attachment to the dunya, attachment to the world makes us scared of death. How? It is again within human nature that when we are attached to a specific thing, we don't like being away from it. If we are attached to a specific person, such as family, a husband and a wife, a mother and her son, a father and his daughter, a very close friend, we don't like being away from them. And this attachment makes us fear and hate being away from them. Maybe we're not necessarily scared of being away from them, but we hate being away from them because there is an attachment to that specific person. Likewise, when it comes to death, we might be attached to specific things that are to do with the dunya, that have nothing to do with the akhirah. And that makes us scared and hate death. One day a person comes to Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali
and he asks him this exact question that we are discussing at the moment. Why am I scared of death? He asked the Prophet, he says to him, why am I scared of death? The Prophet replies to him this. He says to him, do you have money? We all know where this is going to now. The Prophet tells him, do you have money? He says to him, yes, I have money. He said, okay, bring it forth, present it. He said to him, I can't, O Rasulullah. You have money? Yes, present it. I can't, O Rasulullah. He said, and that is a man. Their heart is with their money. So wherever it goes, they start running after it. And if it is behind them, they will stop their life to wait for it. This is man looking for wealth, looking for the akhirah. And yesterday, we had a very nice discussion circle with some of the shabab. And I think it was very beneficial to see different ideas and the different thoughts on this specific issue. The discussion that we had, and this is after the majlis, there was this idea presented that every single year, the number of mourners of Abu Abdullah and Hussain that attend the majalis decreases. And this, for anyone that has attended, would see. And I agreed with that statement because we see that statement in London as well. We see that statement in other cities to be correct. Every single year. Why is there this decrease? That was the question that was proposed. Some people proposed it might be timing. Some said language barriers. Some said they gave many different reasons. All of which, no, they had an answer to. Because timing, we realize that there are majalis that are held across different times in the day, yet even that decreases. In terms of a language barrier, yes, there might have been a language barrier 10 years ago. There might have not been English lectures for those who don't speak Urdu well, or for those who don't speak Arabic well. But for the past at least 4 or 5 years, there has been a good amount of English lectures across the whole of the UK, as well as America, as well as Canada, even in European countries. In Holland, I know that there are English lectures being lectured at the moment, and even there are lectures in Dutch, in the Dutch language. In Denmark, there are lectures that are by a brother of Dil, lectures that are being given in that specific language. So there is no such thing as a language barrier anymore. So we came to the conclusion that it was because of priority. People prioritize other stuff over the majlis of Abu Abdullah Hussain. There is an attachment to the dunya. Those who have attended here today, I ask you by Allah, are you going to gain anything for this dunya from sitting here? What are we gaining for this dunya by sitting here? What am I gaining from the dunya by sitting here? What are you gaining from the dunya by sitting here? No one here gains anything for the dunya, except, of course, except for that our hajat are given to us, inshallah. Whatever our needs are, and tonight is the night of Al-Qasim. We ask Allah by Al-Qasim to grant us our needs, inshallah. Except for that. But this tear that we drop is a tear that we drop to pit of hellfire on the day of judgment. This gathering that we are gathering here today is so that on the day of judgment, everyone can intercede for one another when it comes to choosing the Shia. Yes? This is for the day of judgment, nothing to do with the dunya. The moment we become too attached, we have different priorities. The moment there is this issue of chasing money, whether that is in the halal way or in the haram way, there's an issue. Why? Because many times we start to forget something called the akhirah. We become so busy, so absorbed in finding that every single little penny that we forget something called the akhirah. And that brings us to the third point of why we hate and dislike and fear death, which is that we demolish our akhirah. We demolish our akhirah with our own hands. The first reason is because maybe we don't believe. The second reason, we are attached to the dunya. The third reason, we demolish the akhirah with our own hands. We are so busy in our life trying to gather every single little penny, trying to make sure to give ourselves this social status, that by the end of the day, we forget, for example, salah. We don't have time for it. Throughout the day, we are trying to do everything we can. We get back home, we are sleepy. We go to sleep. We forget to do salah. In Ramadan, fasting is going to affect me this month. I can make much more money if I don't fast. We leave siyam. Many times, these are examples that I'm giving. I'm not giving them from the top of my head. These are examples that we've all seen. And everyone here would agree that we see these examples. We demolish the dunya, the akhirah with our own hands. And this is natural then for a human to then be scared of death. Why? Someone comes to Abu Dhar, the great companion of Rasulullah, the great companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen. They come to him and he asks him the same question that someone asked Rasulullah. He says, why am I scared of death? You know what he replied to him? He said to him, because you're too busy building this world, while you forgot the akhirah and you demolished your house in the akhirah, and it is natural for a person to not go from a well-built place to a demolished place. Today, you live in a very good house that has electricity, that has water. I'm not going to say go to a demolished place. No, move to a place that has no electricity and has no water. Would you do that? Would anyone do that? Just because they feel like no one would do that. But this is what we're doing to the akhirah at the moment. We are demolishing the akhirah with our own hands. That is the reason someone becomes scared of death. Someone might say, no, all these reasons that you gave, they are not reasons. I am a person who is scared of death. Those reasons that you gave are not the reasons I am scared of death. So why are you scared of death? When I read the Quran, it makes me scared of death. When I read a hadith, it makes me scared of death. Okay, fair enough. Let's look at the Quran. The Quran describes the day of judgment in such a way that it will make anyone shake. The Quran, you come to it, there is an ayah that says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The day that every breastfeeding mother will let go of the breastfeeding child and she sees the people as if they are drunk, but they are not drunk, but the punishment of Allah is severe. I read this ayah like the day of judgment, and you want me to have a positive look at death? This makes me scared of death. The closest point a human is to another human is when they are an infant and breastfeeding. And the closest point a mother is to her child is when she is breastfeeding that child. Imagine that mother will throw her child away. And because of that fear, she sees as if people are drunk. As if. But they are not drunk. Rather, the punishment of Allah is severe. I read in the ahadith that people will be drowning because of how much they would be sweating out of fear. People will be screaming, all we want is mercy. People will be shouting in hellfire, take us out of this. People. Yes, natural for a person to get scared. However, why do we look at one side of the story? Why don't we look at the other ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that for the believers there are heavens under which there are flowing rivers with the best of food, the best of drink, and the best of company. Isn't this what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us in the Quran? So the question then comes, okay, if that is the case, why does Allah make us scared of death by mentioning these stuff? Allah's reason, first of all, whatever I'm going to say now, Allah is most wise. But from my understanding that is so short, something that we can relate to, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is not there to scare us, rather it is there to remind us. And that is natural. We as humans use the same way. When it comes to Allah, we say, what is Allah doing? No, we humans do the same thing. When you go to school today, for my younger brothers and sisters, when you go to school today, do they not make their policies very clear? If you don't do your homework, you have to, for example, stay after school for half an hour. If you fight, you are suspended from school for a week. If you do this, this will happen. Are they trying to make you scared from doing specific actions? No. They are trying to tell you that behave properly, otherwise there will be punishment. And these are the results. It's reminding you to make sure that you act normally. And we humans, naturally, when there is no punishment, and when we are 100% sure that we are safe, we start to change our behavior. With this is how we are. We change our behavior. When you come to work, for example, at work, now we talked about school. Now, even when you become older and you're working, does your boss not tell you, for example, that there are specific targets you must reach? Otherwise, for example, there could be like commission that is taken off. Or, for example, specific things in your contract would state that after 3 warnings, you might not have a job anymore. Is this not what happens? I know in my job that there is that. They tell us if you do something wrong, you get an SPR. You do it again, you get a second one. You get a third one, that's it. You're out of a job. Your contract is void. Do they want us to be scared when we go to work? No, they are just trying to make it clear. Remind us, act properly. Your targets, these are your targets. You want to receive your full commission, do that. Likewise, Allah Azza wa Jal. He is telling us, you want to receive that commission, you want to receive that salary, you want to receive that benefit, you want to receive that degree, you want to receive these A-levels, these GCSEs. All you need to do is study properly. How do I study properly? Just perform your obligations and stay away from haram. And that's it. You will have these jannat under which there will be rivers flowing. Otherwise, the first and the main reason why someone would perform a sin is because we forget Allah or we forget the Day of Judgment. Again, I am sitting here on the Mimbar today. Alhamdulillah, I have been blessed and I'm sitting here today. If I was to come off here after having said what I just said, would I perform a sin in front of any of you? It will look bad on my side, wouldn't it? It will look very bad. I wouldn't do that. Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't do that. I will wait until I'm alone and then I will perform whatever sin I want to perform. But then the issue is this: am I ever alone? Or is Allah always there? That means when I perform the sin, what am I doing? It's like performing it in front of everyone else. Except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through His mercy, He hides these sins away from the eyes of people. Whereas Allah is always there. So when we don't see that Allah is there, and when I say we don't see, not with this one, I'm going back to yesterday. We see in our heart, right? When we don't see that Allah is there, we start sinning. And this is why the ayah says, فَذُوقُوا بِمَا نَسِيتُمْ. So taste the punishment with what you have forgotten. What have you forgotten? The Day of Judgment and Allah Azza wa Jalla. So therefore, we understand it is important for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to tell us of the punishments that would be awaiting for us. This is nothing but from His mercy. It is not to scare us. This is a whole different way of looking at it now. Once we see that Allah Azza wa Jal is giving us these punishments, trying to scare us, once we say, no, this is a mercy from Allah Azza wa Jal, reminding us. All He's saying is behave, literally. Just behave. That's all it is. Now the question now is, what actually is death? After having discussed why we are scared of death, etc., what actually is death? First of all, death is the main thing that differentiates an atheist from an atheist. How is that? An atheist who does not believe in God and does not believe in an afterlife, they believe that this world is the end, and after that, they are finished. And that is why many of them try to lengthen their life as much as they want, as much as they can, and try to avoid something called death as much as they can, and try to stay away from such things as much as they can. Because for them, it is an end, and they don't want to end, they want to live their life. For an atheist, for a person who believes in God, no, they believe in an afterlife, they believe in barzakh, they believe in a day of judgment. And this is why you see many times that from the believers, because of this belief of there being an eternity after this life, it makes them braver. Many times this can have an effect on how brave we are, how confident we are. Many times this could make them more confident and more brave. And we see the best examples in our imams and in their companions. Take the example of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi afdalu salatu wassalam.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
When he was struck by Ibn Muljim alayhi la'a'inullah, what did he shout? فزت ورب الكعبة. I have won by the Lord of Kaaba, I have become victorious. Where did this come from? He knows there's an eternity, and he has become victorious in reaching the best places in heaven through this. Look at Abu Abdullah al-Hussain alayhi afdalu salatu wassalam. Sallu ala Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
He says, by Allah, I see death nothing but happiness, and living with oppressors nothing but a waste of time and oppression. Or different, look at death, because there's eternity. Living with oppressors, we're going to gain nothing out of it. Look at Zuhair ibn al-Qaym, the companion. We use examples from Imams, let's use examples from their companions. Zuhair ibn al-Qaym, on the day of Ashura, he was given the commander of the right wing of the army of Abu Abdullah. So imagine the great detail that he had to go in with people in advising them, because you know that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein did not go out to fight. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein went out to advise. So the commanders of his army, their role before fighting was to advise. Habib ibn Mudahir would advise. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas would advise. Zuhair ibn al-Qayn would advise. He would advise them so much that Shimr, may Allah withdraw his mercy from him, he would shout at Zuhair. He would say to him, "Oh Zuhair, you have made us deaf. Stop talking. Stop talking, you have made us deaf." Zuhair replies to him. He says to him, "Oh, the son of al-Bawal ala aqibih," reminding him of who his father truly was, who his ancestors were. Then he says to him, "Ma iyaka ukhatib," it is not you that I am talking to. "Innama anta bahima," you are nothing but an animal. Zuhair says to Shimr, "You are nothing but an animal. I'm not talking to you." An animal, if you remember, we said is created with no brain, no mind, nothing to think with, pure lust. And this was Shimr, eat, drink, sleep. What else did he have? Zuhair, if he wanted to advise, it would go from this ear and leave the other. So he says, "I'm not talking to you. You are nothing but an animal to me." Shimr got angry. He said to him, and he started to warn him. He said, "I will kill you in an hour, you and your friend," referring to Imam al-Hussein. Look at Zuhair's reply. He says to him, "Are you trying to scare me with death? By Allah, death with Hussein is more beloved for me than eternity with you." He saw further than this world. He saw that there is something as eternity. How does Abu Abdullah al-Hussein describe death? He says death, and he says this on his way to Karbala. He would look at his companions, he would look at his family members. He says to him, "Death is nothing but a qantara." Qantara is an arch. What he was referring to is a bridge. He says death is nothing but a bridge, which you walk on to move from this world to the hereafter. And again, this is natural. There needs to be a reason, a sabab, which takes us from this world to the next world. We start in alam al-dhar. When the sperm and the egg meet, and then the ruh comes in, that is we are in alam al-janiniya, in that embryo stage. Yes, that's a world. That's a separate world in Islam. Alam al-janiniya. Then through the process of the mother giving birth to the child, that is the means, that is the bridge in which we move to this world. Then through a thing called death, that is the bridge from here to the barzakh, to the grave. Then through the calling of the angels to the soul to come back up, that is the bridge from barzakh to the day of judgment. There has to be some sort of reason. Death is that reason. In the same way that Allah sends your soul to become an embryo, in the same way that your mother gives birth to you, in the same way that you die, in the same way you go up. It's a bridge. These are all bridges that we go through. Imam al-Baqir alayhi afdal as-salati was-salam, when he describes death, he says, death is the sleep that you sleep every night. Look at the way he's describing death now. The sleep that you sleep every night, except for this one, will last longer. This is death. Death, again, it's a bridge. It's a place that we are just moving from. Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi afdal salatu was-salam, he describes death in a different way. He says death for a believer, this is very specific, for a believer, is like taking off dirty clothing and taking off shackles and chains and replacing it with the purest of clothing. That is death for a believer, according to Imam Zayn, pure clothing. And this is why we have a narration from Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He says the world is the paradise of a kafir, of a disbeliever, and the prison of a believer, while the hereafter is the prison and the punishment for a disbeliever and the paradise for a believer. And that is why we go through that process of taking off the dirty clothing, not because we are dirty necessarily, but because it's a prison for us believers, inshallah. Afdal salati wa salam. Now we've given different imams and how they describe death, yes? And so far we've seen there's nothing but positivity. Imam al-Kadhim also explains it in a very beautiful manner. They all have their own ways of describing this process. He says death is a musfat. A musfat is a filter. He says death is a filter. Imagine you bring something and put it through a filter. He says that is what death is. For a believer, their last sins are forgiven through it. And for a disbeliever, it is the last part of happiness for them. A filter. A believer has spent their life, salah, siyam, helping others, but there are these little mistakes that we make here and there. Death is a filter. It takes away that mistake. For a disbeliever who are living this beautiful life over here, that will be their last time of happiness. Now this filter, when is it? This filter, the Imam is referring to Naz'a al-Ruh, when the soul is taken out by the angel. This process of Naz'a al-Ruh is possibly the most difficult process for a believer or a disbeliever. This is usually the most difficult process for a believer or a disbeliever. Why is that? That is because our ulama say it is very little, the amount of people to not feel a punishment in this is very little. Why? Because of this filter stage. So it might just be made a bit more difficult, but at the end of it, there will be calmness. A person will be fine. And this is natural. Why is that natural? You know, the soul has been too used to your body. You've grown 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, 100 years. Whenever you would die, your soul is used to your body and it has grown, or your body has grown while it is inside it. So it is natural when it is so used to it that they will feel that type of loneliness. The soul would feel a bit, it will be a bit hard to take it off. Take the example of a tooth. If you have a rotten tooth, pain. And if your mouth feels weird for a bit, especially if your tongue goes through that side, or if you have a bit of food stuck there, it feels a bit weird. But after that, that tooth was causing you so much pain. After that, you feel fine and you feel relaxed. Likewise with the soul when it is taken out. It is the same process. It is the best way to describe it. It is a very similar process. Now, before I get into this Naz' al-Ruh further, I just want to talk about one thing, because every day we are talking about practical steps we can take with whatever subject we're talking. What are the practical steps we can take to prepare for this stage? What can we do to prepare for death? And this I will summarize in a few. Number one, as simple as following wajibat, obligations, and refraining from what has been made haram. This is number one, the most simple thing. And we can do that through dhikrullah, firstly. Secondly, by applying everything we have talked about for the past 2 days. 3 days, I should say. The amanah, salah, and yesterday, the sight of the heart. If we apply these 3 talks, to summarize, if we apply these 3, that is the first stage of preparing for death. What else? We go to a narration from Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
The Holy Prophet says that when someone dies, all the a'mal will stop except for 3. The first amal that will stay is a sadaqah jariyah. A sadaqah, a charity that is flowing. Jariyah means flowing. How do we get sadaqah jariyah? This can be easy. You, for example, help in the building of a mosque. Every person that prays there, every majlis that is performed there, you get sadaqah. You help in, for example, the building of a home, that shelter that you have given to people. Every time they pray under that home, every time they hold a majlis in that home, you get thawab for it, even after you pass away. Sadaqah jariyah doesn't have to be building homes or mosques. It can be as simple as gifting a turba to someone. How much does a turba cost? Nothing. It is very cheap. Bring that turba, gift it to someone. Every time they pray on it, you get sadaqah for that. You get it's like charity that is flowing. You get constant thawab. Gift a prayer mat. There's constant thawab. Gift a Quran. Thawab. Gift a dua book. Thawab. There are many different things that we can do. So you just find your own way of how you can perform sadaqah jariyah. That is number one. Number two, sadaqah jariyah. Number two, a good son that can perform dua for them. This I want to stop at for a minute. A good son that does dua for their father, their mother, good son or daughter that does dua for their parents, that is sadaqah that will stay after you pass away. Now here there's an issue, because we can't just hope for a good son that will pray for us later. We need to set that example. We need to set that example. And we need to perform tarbiyah. We need to raise them so that they can be of these people later. How do we do that? First of all, set the example. If they have their grandfather or grandmother who has passed away, or someone in their family, do you take out sadaqah every Friday? Do you remember them in reciting Surah Al-Fatiha? Now, if you haven't gotten them used to doing that from a young age, do you think they will remember doing that after you pass away? Mustahil. Give them enough time in raising them. Yes, this world, we are busy with it, but the son or daughter has a right upon you. Give them time. Do you think they won't remember you after you pass away? As simple as a Fatiha. You know, at that time, when people start visiting the graves, the angels will come to you and they will tell you, especially when it's a son or daughter, they will tell you, look, your son or daughter has come to you. It's a state of happiness for you. But we need to raise them on this. We need to make sure that we set that example for them. Teach them how to do that. Otherwise, how would we expect that? And imagine the thawab of it. You know, we have in our narrations that a son or daughter who was not good to their parents during their lifetime, But after their death, it is never too late, brothers and sisters. Those who have lost loved ones, it is never too late. But after their death, they remember them in Sadaqah and in Surah Fatiha, and by visiting them, they will change from those that were not good to them to those that were good to them. And I said it's never too late, and it also never stops, because those who are good to their parents but forget them after their death, they will switch for those who are good to their parents to those who are bad to their parents. We need to be very careful. And I think this is a very important thing to remember. Remember them every Friday, Sadaqah, Surah Fatiha, whatever it may be. What else can help us prepare for death? A good sunnah that we set. A good sunnah. Now, a good sunnah is a way. So if you set a specific example and people follow that example, that is a good example. Every person that does that example, you will receive their thawab for following it. If you set a bad example, every person that followed that, you will receive the sayyat for it. This doesn't necessarily have to mean bring out new stuff. No, if you teach someone the way of praying on time and they follow your example on that, you will receive the hasanat every time they pray on time. The examples are many. I'm running out of time. Just set good examples. You will receive the hasanat of it. Set bad examples. The opposite will apply. What else? Constantly remembering death will help us in preparing for death. And this is one of the great mustahabbat, always remember death. We said the point of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioning these punishments and the deaths is why? To prepare us for it. Us remembering it is important as well. Constantly remember it. Remember it by remembering your marhumin. It is an obligation upon us. It is something that is highly recommended. Very highly recommended. Very highly recommended to visit graves. Very highly recommended to perform a'mal in the names of your marhumin. Very highly recommended to go and attend janazah, funerals. Very highly recommended. In fact, it is wajib to attend the salah of a person who has passed away for one person. Then everyone else, it's wajib kifai. Then everyone else will come. That is mustahab. But it is wajib. Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it wajib at least a person to go? This is so that we are always remembering that death. Wajib upon one person at least to attend the salah, and everyone else, it becomes mustahab as well. Highly recommended. Burying someone is highly recommended. Imagine, burying someone is highly recommended, except it is makruh, it is not recommended if a son is burying their father. That is the only time when it is not recommended. Other than that, it is always recommended to bury someone. Attend these funerals. Remembering death makes us prepared for death. And from these little points, I think you can take many. We come back to a believer. We come back this positive look at death. Everything we just did, we saw nothing but positivity in that. There was nothing negative. Even the negative parts that we thought to be negative turned out to be positives and turned out to be mercy from Allah Azza wa Jal. When you come, Imam al-Sadiq alayhi afdalu salati wa salam, he says death for a believer is like smelling a good scented flower, for which you will then feel sleepy from, and you will forget all tiredness. It is like smelling a good scented flower for a believer. How beautiful is this? Now let me give you the most amazing news from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi afdalu salati wa salam. This, I think, will be the best way we can conclude today. From a narration from Imam al-Sadiq, we started with the ayah, which one? Ya ayyatuha nafsul mutma'in. O reassured soul. O soul that has been reassured. Irji'i. Go back. Ila rabbiki. I want you to focus with the translation, please, because that will affect the narration. O reassured soul, go back to your Lord. Irji'i ila rabbiki. Radiyatan, pleased. Mardiyya, and made pleased. فادخلي, so enter, في عبادي, amongst my slaves and servants, وادخلي جنتي, and enter my heavens. Now we come to the narration. The narration says that when the angel of death comes to take out the soul of a believer, the believer will be in a state of, they will be scared, and they will close their eyes and they wouldn't know what to do at that stage anymore. The angel of death would shout, don't be scared, and open your eyes. The believer will open their eyes. Inshallah, we are amongst them. The believer will open their eyes and they will see Rasulullah, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Fatima al-Zahra, Imam al-Hassan and Hussain. Okay. They open their eyes, they see them, yes? Then a call will come from the skies that will say to that believer, Ya ayyatuha an-nafsul mutma'inna, oh reassured soul, by Muhammad and his family, irji'i, go back, ila rabbiki, to your Lord, radiyatan, pleased with what? With wilaya, maradiyya, made pleased, بالثواب, with good deeds that you have done. فادخلي في عبادي, so enter amongst my slaves, Muhammad and Al Muhammad, and enter my paradise. This is the state of a believer when it comes to death. It's a bridge, and even when crossing that bridge, we are crossing it with Muhammad and Al Muhammad. And this is why you will find that many of the shuhada were thirsty for death, because they knew it was going to be like smelling a good scented flower. Or in words of Al-Qasim, when Uncle Hussein asks him, he says to him, Bunay Qasim, O son Qasim, nephew Qasim, how do you see death? He says to him, O Uncle Hussein, for you, death in your path is sweeter to me than honey. Sweeter than honey. أجركم الله. In Karbala, Hussein stood all alone. His companions had fallen one by one. At that point, even Al-Akbar was gone. So came to his aid Qasim, son of Hassan. He said to him, oh my uncle, allow me to fight. Imam al-Hussein said to him, I promised your father to take care of you. He replied to him, oh Uncle Hussein, but you are the will of my father. He said to him, how is that? He said to him, Uncle Hussein, when death approached my father, he would say to me, oh my son Qasim, if you see your uncle all alone, a stranger with no supporters, then make sure that you defend him. Oh my son Qasim, represent me in the battlefield. Ajarakum Allah, Imam al-Hussein would take him to the tent. When Imam al-Hussein arrived at Karbala, he named one of the tents Khaymatul Hassan al-Masmoom, the tent of the poisoned Hassan. He wanted to feel like his brother was with him. he would take him to that tent. Imam al-Hussein would give him the war clothing of Imam al-Hassan. He gave him the sword of Imam al-Hassan. He said to him, "Oh son Qasim, before you go to your mother, go to Lady Zainab, send your farewells." Al-Qasim would approach. As soon as Lady Zainab saw him, she would shout, "Wa Hasana! Is this my brother Imam al-Hassan I'm seeing?" He said, "No, auntie, this is Qasim." Then he would bid his farewell, "Ajarakum Allah." He turns around to his mother. He says to her, "Oh, Mother Amla, I am Qasim. I am about to die thirsty. Whenever you drink water, remember my thirst. Whenever you see youth, remember my youth." 14 years, yes? Ajarakum Allah. Al-Qasim would go out into the battlefield shouting, "In tent kuruni فأنا نجل الحسن صبط النبي المصطفى والمؤتمن هذا حسين كالأسير المرتهن بين أناس لاصقوا صوب المزن." If you neglect me, I am the son of Hassan, the grandson of the Holy Prophet. This is Hussein, like a captured prisoner between people who have started their worldly desires. Ajarakum Allah. Al-Qasim would fight them, reminding them of his uncle Amir al-Mu'mineen, reminding them of his father Imam al-Hassan, until his slipper would break. Yes, at that time, it was not appropriate for a person to walk barefoot, and the son of the grandson of Rasulullah would not walk barefoot in the battlefield. Ajarakum Allah. Al-Qasim would fix his sandal. An enemy of Allah would hit Al-Qasim on the head. Aywa Qasim wa Sayyida. He would shout, "Uncle Hussein, come to my aid." Ajarakum Allah. Imam al-Hussein would rush towards the battlefield. Yes, people would be standing, the women by the tents. They said to him, "Oh Hussein, the sound of Al-Qasim is coming from this side. Why are you going to the other side?" He said to them, yes, I know, but I am following the killer of my nephew." Ajarakum Allah. He would get the revenge of Al-Qasim, then sit by Al-Qasim. What I say in what state? He looked at Al-Qasim in pieces. Ajarakum Allah. This is his uncle Hussein, yes. He looks at him. He says to him, "Oh, Uncle Hussein, I am lying here with my body broken. Uncle Hussein, this is my father Hassan. His grave was stolen. He sends his salams, oh my Uncle Hussein." Imam al-Hussein would tell him, "Oh Qasim, I wish the sword take my neck before your head." Do you know what's most painful? The image of Hussein returning Qasim. He would hug Al-Qasim to his chest. Imam al-Hussein was told, Al-Qasim still 14 years of age. The narration would say the feet of Al-Qasim would drag on the floor. How? This is because the back of Imam al-Hussein would arch. He wouldn't be able to stand straight. This is Qasim, his beloved Qasim, yes? And this is painful. When he returns him to the tent, do you know where he puts him? He lays him right next to Ali al-Akbar. Right next to Ali al-Akbar, he looks at them, he tells them, oh my sons, now you're lying here, he's there to support me. My enemies have surrounded me. He calls out the ladies. Ramla sees him beside Ali al-Akbar. Ramla sees him beside Ali al-Akbar. She slaps her face, shouting, Allahu Akbar. Oh Qasim, send my salams to your grandmother Fatima. By Allah, you have made me proud in front of her, but I will never see you as a groom. The wish of every mother, yes? But I will never see you as a groom to bury you, oh my son. It's too soon. أيوة قاسمة وسيدة ومظلومة حسين 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 إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. Oh Allah, we ask you by the best of your creation, oh Allah, by Fatima and her father and her husband, they need, Ya Allah, grant them their needs by Al-Qasim, some of them, those of an ill person, oh Allah, grant them a speedy recovery, Ya Arham Ar-Rahim, by the ill of Karbala, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Ya Allah. Oh Allah, hasten the appearance of Sahib al-Zaman and allow us to be amongst his supporters, Ya Arham Ar-Rahim. The sponsor of today's majlis, Shabazz Hussain, oh Allah, protect him with the best of your protection. Allow him to be of those who serve Al-Qasim, to be of those who serve Abu Abdullah, those who serve the Ahlul Bayt, Ya Arham Ar-Rahim. Form a dua of shifa for Farzana Bibi, inshallah, all together. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amma yujibul yakshifu as-su', amma yujibul يكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء يا الله oh Allah grant Farzan Habibi a speedy recovery ya Allah all those who are ill who have attended this majlis the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen oh Allah grant them a speedy recovery ya Allah for those who have attended oh Allah accept their a'mal their deeds with the best of your acceptance the organizers, oh Allah, accept their deeds with the best of your acceptance. For the marhumin of those who have attended, and the marhumin of the sponsors of these majalis, and the marhumin of Shi'at Amir al-Mu'mineen. We remember them in a Surah Fatiha, but before it a very loud salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. चंद रातां बाकी ने आज़ादार मज़लूम हुसैन